Hi everybody, major hot topic this one for paper 2. First though, make sure you've watched all my free trade related content videos. Yes, the theory behind it, the diagrams linked with it, so that everything coming in this video is going to be very well understood. And yes, the topic area is very much how since Brexit, all of our politicians in the UK have come out and they've said that we want the UK to be a champion of free trade. We want the UK to be a global leader of free trade, despite how the rest of the world seemingly are turning their back towards globalization, adopting a much more protectionist rhetoric. The UK saying, nah, we want to champion free trade. And the way we're doing that is by signing free trade deals or attempting to sign free trade deals with many countries out there in the world. As I'm talking now, 39 different trade deals have been signed with various countries, most notably with Singapore, South Korea, Switzerland, Australia, New Zealand, with the EU itself, a major no tariff, no quota trade deal signed. But also we're a member of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, despite having nothing to do with the Pacific Ocean, despite not having a Pacific coastline. We're a member of that trading bloc. And as I'm talking at the moment, there are trade talks ongoing with the USA to try and overcome the reciprocal tariffs that Trump has introduced on the UK. Trade talks are ongoing with India. That will be a major trade deal to get signed, to get over the line. Trade talks are ongoing with the EU to improve the existing trade deal signed in December 2021. Talks are also ongoing with the Gulf Council, a variety of Gulf Middle Eastern nations, try and get a trade deal signed with them as well. But what's the point of this? What are UK politicians going for in signing these trade deals? Well, they're going for the major benefits that you guys have learned already. You know, when the Australia and New Zealand trade deals were signed, the Department for Trade in the UK released a document of the most significant benefits of these trade deals for the UK. And those benefits are literally exactly the same ones that theory suggests that you guys have learned. So for example, the benefits of trade creation, in particular, economic growth, how in our situation the UK can now exploit our comparative advantages, whether it's services exporters or goods exporters, and they can sell their goods and services tariff-free to all these countries out there that we've signed trade deals with. How UK consumers and producers can benefit from low prices, high quantity, high choice, given tariff-free access to foreign imports. How technology can spread faster, given that firms now can access a wider market, they can sell to a wider market, increase their profits that way, and reinvest those profits into technology advancement. But also firms can access imports very easily and copy technology. So yeah, the spread of technology can be a lot quicker when free trade deals are signed. But also a key part of signing these trade deals can be the free movement of business. So inward FDI can be promoted from signing trade deals like this. But there are concerns. A lot of these concerns have been raised, are being talked about at the moment too. How, for example, if domestic firms without a comparative advantage are simply going to suffer and see lost output, they're going to see lower revenue, lower profit, potentially business closures if they don't have a comparative advantage and free trade deals are signed. And that can mean job losses, that can mean higher inequality. This was very much talked about when the Australia and New Zealand free trade deals were signed. The big concern were UK farmers. They all came out and said, look, you know, within agricultural sectors, those guys in Australia and New Zealand can outcompete us. And as a result, you know, we might face business closure, we might see a big hit to our profits, and we might see rising unemployment as a result of that, in particular within dairy and meat industries. So this is a very good argument. Within certain industries that lack a comparative advantage, free trade will not be good for those industries. How maybe to push these trade deals through, standards might need to be reduced. It's a big concern currently with the US-UK trade talks and how US standards, in particular product standards, are far lower than UK product standards within agriculture, within the agricultural sector. And how if it means standards are lowered to get these trade deals signed, that might not be good for consumer welfare, but also, you know, there might be a lowering of environmental standards or health and safety standards, worker standards, which is not necessarily in the interest of all of those stakeholders. So trade deals that come through with lower standards are not necessarily a great thing. Bear in mind the UK doesn't have comparative advantages within a variety of manufacturing sectors. Our comparative advantages are very much within services sectors. So think financial services, legal services, education services, yeah. So by signing these trade deals, there is a risk actually of more imports within the UK, more import expenditure than export revenue gains, actually widening existing trade deficits and then having all the issues that come with that. But also, we are massively over-specialized within services. Free trade deals that mean greater exploitation of comparative advantages can worsen the over-specialization concerns that are already there in the UK and all the concerns that come with even greater over-specialization. And free trade deals that mean more trade, more production can mean greater environmental trade-offs. So you can see a lot of the pros and cons are very, very similar to the content that you've learned already, but now applied to these trade deals and trade talks. Absolutely valid and great application for you. But even better is being able to apply all of these arguments to diagrams. I mentioned in my content videos how great diagrams are. You can illustrate many of the pros, many of the cons of free trade using these diagrams. But now we can do it even more applied. There are two diagrams that you can draw to illustrate free trade. One is your bog standard generic free trade diagram, the first one. The second one is your trade creation diagram, where you start with an initial trading point with a tariff and then remove that tariff to take you to free trade. But yes, you can apply on the diagram, and the way you apply is completely up to you. So there are two ways you can go. The first one is taking the point of view of the UK as an importer without the comparative advantage. So you have the UK as the domestic kind of market here, the domestic country here, whereas Australia, a country we've signed a free trade deal with, is the country with the comparative advantage. That can be flipped the other way around if you want to, and I flipped the other way around to show you how that will work on the trade creation diagram. But going this way around, we can see the benefits, for example, of lower prices, higher quantity, higher choice benefits to UK consumers and UK producers there. You can also see gains of comparative advantage, how resources are going mainly to Australia, and how the UK is not producing much output. This is an efficient allocation of resources. But this diagram also shows you some of the major concerns of free trade and free trade deals, like how in this case UK industries are struggling to compete, how their output reduces, the contraction of supply, the lower domestic revenue, the lower domestic producer surplus. All of that you can use to back up that concern. Rising unemployment as well, very much links to this diagram. Concerns of over-specialization and trade deficits, you can see with greater imports coming into the UK, all of which can be shown on this diagram. So there's your generic free trade diagram applied to the UK as an importer. But now to the trade creation diagram. I like this diagram quite a lot because it takes an initial trading relationship with a country, which is more realistic. So it takes a situation of tariffs initially. I've flipped the application around, where now the UK is an exporter to the US, to Australia. So the UK here with a comparative advantage, Australian industries without a comparative advantage. So here the UK is an exporter to Australia. And we assume initially that without a trade deal, the UK would be facing tariffs applied by Australia on UK exports. But now with a free trade deal signed, those tariffs can be removed. So now the UK has got a free trading relationship with Australia. So you can use this diagram basically to back up the major benefits of economic growth for the UK. How the UK can export a lot more to Australia. So Q3 to Q4 will be exports of the UK, imports coming into Australia from the UK. And the gain in export revenue to the UK as a result of that, you can tie to higher economic growth, higher X minus M, higher AD, higher growth that way. That's what this diagram is very useful for. But know your diagrams well, be able to interchange the application to back up whatever pros and cons you might be writing. In terms of evaluation of trade deals, like whether they are going to be more good than bad, whether they're actually going to be effective, whether they're actually going to be beneficial to the UK, some nice points to evaluate with. First of all, how long it takes to get these trade deals through. I mean, the India one, we've been negotiating with India for 2.5 to 3 years, and still we're not quite at the end of those talks yet. But also the extent of the benefits depends on the extent of trade taking place with these countries. Look at the trade deals we've signed. You know, outside of the EU, which is a contentious trade deal, many of these countries are far away from the UK. We don't do much trade with these countries anyway. So in that sense, the extent of the pros and the cons are going to be quite weak given the limited trade taking place with many of these countries. In terms of the EU, know that there was a no tariff, no quota trade deal signed in December 2021, but many other frictions to trade still remain. That takes us to evaluation point number 3. There could be non-tariff barriers like standards. So now with the EU, we have to formally prove as exporters to the EU that we're meeting all of these EU standards with paperwork, with certificates, all of which need to be manually checked to EU ports, right? There is still significant frictions to trade in that sense, difficulties in trading with the EU there. But also, EU local VAT rates that differ between countries in the EU need to be applied to all of these goods coming into the EU as well. So again, there are blocks at ports to make sure all these charges are paid for, etc. And it takes time. It is burdensome actually to trade with the EU. So there might still be non-tariff barriers like those, like standards, for example, which can act as frictions to trade. Also, despite trade deals being signed, countries might still be enacting and using unfair trade practices. Subsidies come to mind, other kind of state interventions come to mind, competitive devaluations come to mind. So free trade might be fully free trade. And also we mentioned stakeholder trade-offs, how there might be benefits to consumers, but if domestic industry suffers and jobs are lost as a result of that, there are significant stakeholder trade-offs to weigh up. Is that really worth it? For the sake of signing free trade deals. So there you have it, guys. Major hot topic for this year. This question comes up. Hopefully you're going to absolutely smash it now. You've got the content, you've got the application, you've got the diagrams to use as well. This is basically a wonderful essay plan given to you right here. Hopefully you do a great job in it, but stay tuned for the next video where we look at Trump and all of his crazy trade policies, a much more protectionist rhetoric there. Can't wait to see you in that video. Another major hot topic. Thanks for watching this one.